because there hasn't been any need for these tests. It's quite alarming, and I wonder why a number of Nigerians don't.
Let me jump in there. I wouldn't completely put the blame on Nigerians. I won't put the blame on anyone. It's shared equally. Everybody has their place in this entire thing. You know, before we started talking about this, Chooks mentioned something that was quite jarring to me. And he said that it's only women that are able to, you know, having children, that you have the receipt, proof of infidelity. There's no proof of infidelity from the men. There's no way to know what they've been doing. So for the woman, unfortunately, having children, and whether it's by your partner or by somebody else, is unfortunately the receipt to all of this. But you know, at the end of the day, Dr. Constance, what this report also states is that 25% of the people that have been tested, that is what it said. It didn't say everybody in Nigeria, so that's something we also have to keep in the front of our minds.
As consolation.
And continue later, but we have to go now. Yeah. Let's move on to the next story. Daily Sun, US, UK, CAN or CAN commend FG NSA over arrest of terror kingpins. Well, I would like to focus on the rider which says US releases new visa guidelines for Nigeria. The US Embassy now requires 5 years social media history for visa appointments and has revoked 6,000 student visas. This is across the US. In response, the federal government says it will reciprocate this new policy. The visas revoked were for overstays and law violations, and some of them are for students who protested against Israel. When the Nigerian government does need to put together an appropriate response to these new policies, every country deserves the right to protect its borders and sovereignty. The only problem is that when it comes to Africans that try to do that, there's all sorts of interventions, interference, that undermine, exploit, and political instability for external gain. So, you know, certain leaders are bad, certain policies are pushed. And then at the end of the day, you know, African states and become dependent on other countries. And this part of the exodus that
those ones actually stick
today, because you know the countries are severely threatened and weakened. I don't know. We don't have time to discuss that. So let's see other papers. Banker newspaper. FG vows equal response as US Biden saying that. And then here, 2.2 million poor households to receive FG's cash transfer, according to the minister. Atiku Obi United without presidential ticket, according to the ABC. We also have this morning the Guardian newspaper.
So when the man noticed that there are other guys.
Actually, I was reading another paper. So Leadership newspaper, 59,376 registered on Thursday. So we're having the registration for elections, so go and register if you haven't done that. We also have Daily Trust this morning. Daily Trust, yes, where's Daily Trust? Okay, yeah, Sokoto boat mishap, 3 family members, 23 others missing. And then Delhi Independent, Nigerians will provide 5 years social media.
That's very Valentine's Day, when this man came. Because that time, we never get
contractors accused
of
foreign companies and on the
because of good of activities, he landed, he came at night.
And ritual.
By then,
International headlines this morning, Daily Graphic, then export under new EU framework. 5 Ghanaian companies have been given certificates to export to the European Union under the forest law, government and trade licensing regime. The citizen newspaper, the Two-Face Pricey license place. Civil rights group AfriForum is demanding transparency and appeals for cost disclosure and effectiveness data on the state system. Lastly, the Times newspaper, still on Ukraine and Russia, Trump was very key security guarantee. And then if we go to the Sun newspaper, it's with a rather light-handed headline, suited, not booted. This refers to the more cordial relations between yesterday. first party and party and counter earlier today. Remember that Zelensky was giving a public dress down. Vice President David Vance had asked him why he was not wearing a suit. Well, yesterday he was wearing a suit and he talked less and seemed less confrontational. Yolanda, it's still a productive meeting, although the Europeans are still pushing for a ceasefire, which hangs in the balance.
Absolutely, suited and not suited. That's a very interesting thing with very different meeting than what we've seen with Trump and Putin late last week. And with this, everybody was so vocal, the journalists were asking their questions. But if you remember with the Putin meeting, when journalists were asking about the ceasefire, even indicated to his ear that he couldn't hear what they were saying or what they were asking and completely ignored everything. And this one is different. You're looking at the pictures that are from this meeting, and Zelensky is smiling, Trump is smiling. But the truth is, it's really difficult times for Ukraine. It's really hard to come and face Trump in this way over and over again, and nothing seems to be yielding at the moment. I think the only positive thing is that the European nations are really backing up Zelensky and really pushing for the ceasefire. So I'm hoping that in the weeks to come, there was that hot mic moment where it was leaked that Trump was expressing to Macron that there's a possible bilateral conversation that's going to happen with the U.S. involved. Hopefully that will yield some positive results.
Well, there's supposed to be a trilateral, even yesterday's meeting, was a success. Okay, the other people that have that same story, the independents, Zelensky, we are ready for talks, with Trump and Putin. We also have the newspaper and the Guardian. Finally, Trump, no need for ceasefire to secure Ukraine peace deal. And finally, Metro.co.uk, warning at Sleek Med's sites cash in. UK's 5,000 fake online pharmacies, unbelievable. Scammers sell deadly pesticide or animal pills as real thing and steal customers' data. These sophisticated fake pharmacies are selling dangerous drugs to people in the UK, putting lives at risk, investigations say. It goes on to say that cyber criminals harvest people's data while selling fake drugs. It might be Ozempic or Viagra or whatever. Investigation, even in the UK, cyber criminals are everywhere. With Executive Director of Authority newspaper.
Well, that's all we have time for our day break. I'm Tulu Ojomi. It's goodbye for me.
And I'm Yolanda Roberts. Thank you so much, Dr. Constance Ikoku, for joining us on the newspaper review and driving that for us today. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.
How far, Nigeria? Welcome to Glow Cafe App. Come in. Because it's time for an upgrade. Your own personal Glow Cafe app open 24/7. Welcome to bigger, better, smarter. Welcome to total control of your data. You enter. I'm gonna pull you back. How you buy? I'll send you data. How you share and how you recharge. Name it! All in one place.
And the best way to do it is
Welcome
to
more value. Download the upgraded Glow Cafe app to get more data. Get 100% recharge bonus and get a massive 100 gigabytes data when you register. Want it all? Download all this into this.
With the respect.
The account donates 1,000 shillings fitted with built-in solar lamps through our discount initiative. I don't emphasize on nobody. I want to talk about school life. There is no life. And this is affecting these children. So how the political value that we are expecting from them, from school, down, to their different schools.
Any nation anywhere in the world doesn't truly education.
Thank you so much for the wonderful post.
See, I have intention of recycling the guy.
Look on the guy again, what
Very
happened?
good. Forget it is back from the day.
I wanted to
Not there. And then I think really for the start of the so 247
Right on time, Nigeria. You're on.
Stop debating us Nigeria. Together, we make more than better.
Wake up and thrive, Nigeria.
Yeah,
A new day with you, Nigeria. Your morning.
Join us every morning, Nigeria. You're on. Every reason why Nigeria wakes up. Every morning, we deliver the news you need to know. Look up through the night, bring you your vanished truth. Now we always try to practice your
Wake up with us, Nigeria. Your morning. Our mission.
That's what you're gonna say.
Feel the pulse of the planet. From New York to Nairobi, London to Lagos, our world is connected. Our stories intertwined. Join us as we navigate the news that shape our lives. News through the voices that live it, the actors that make sense of it, and the leaders that shape it. Our network of correspondents around the world ensure that you don't miss a thing. Trust us to bring you unfiltered news, deep dives, and powerful conversations. The world never stops, and neither do we. Every second counts, and every story matters. Give us 60 minutes, and we'll do the world.
Tiger, gang, concentrate, propagate, come on, volume shares, seize the bulls, and make over the beers, derivatives, and currencies, the understanding speed, finance goes, the peace and the trade, and calling over to get to fit, trade, lecture on move, where's the trade, stay up to date with business and markets every weekday on the Rice Exchange. Good morning out there. You are watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati.
Good morning, I'm Ayo Meyer, Essay.
Before I say I'm breaking a lot of things, like say, I'll sit back, relax, and stay silent and one to the America.
This was trade Saturday's by-elections across several states yesterday. As the All Progressives Congress, APC in Oyo, the People's Democratic Party in Kaduna, and the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, in Kano, rejected results alleging vote buying, voter intimidation, involving the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, security agencies, and the ruling party. Of the just concluded by-elections, opposition parties have rejected the results and conduct of the electoral process. The PDP has also accused INEC of deliberate sabotage and described the election process as a severe blow to Nigerian democracy. Joining us later to discuss the conduct of Saturday's by-elections is Felix Moka, National Publicity Secretary alongside Ladan Salihu, a member of the African Democratic Congress, ADC.
Also, we shall be engaging Kunle Ogumba, a senior advocate of Nigeria, for a right of reply to Olayinka Oladaniels on the controversial receivership assault involving the Ikeja Electricity Distribution Company, alongside First Independent Power Limited and EGBI Power PLC, all subsidiaries of Sahara Energy Group,
Country on news making headlines around the globe. The time start brings up this on the across the globe. All our news
Nigerians, they see them as the same. All politicians are the same. So that they win at the he had to equally effect because when you call them and say them, they are seeing them as the same. They all by Kofi and you call the problem. Nigerians need the politicians they are trusting. You know that people like you to be made a plenty so that you can say, okay, you are sure.
Children on the rise news. And now we take a look at news stories.
So that as you can around even on a ballot or have a
ahead of the
ballot.
Tokyo International Conference on African Development, President Bola Tinubu has arrived.
Yeah, happy as you.
The president flew in from Iran, where he had been since
Like in the hand before that they had the same
Airport
politicians.
Tokyo by the ambassador in charge of TICAD, Iglo Matsubura.
They have promises in
The summit, which opens on Wednesday,
even as of 20 years, you go to be at the same thing.
investment and sustainable development.
Because now I know you have been to be also do experience here to be one of our states. Here we are at national level,
With top executives of Japanese companies already investing in Nigeria.
So my one-on-one here at
TICAD is a triennial conference co-hosted by the United Nations, the African Union.
That's why everybody will wait for higher speed and then correct.
The last edition took place in Tunisia in 2022. From Japan, the Nigerian president will proceed to Brazil on a 2-day state visit at the invitation of President.
This one is when we see people to be the shot from consumption.
Moving on, the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission (RMAFC) has
You know what person politician the same thing. After that election, then they will leave them go. With the embezzle money. So come on, go be a guy off right now.
Announced this at a news conference on Monday in Abuja. Fellow said that the aim of the review was to produce a fair, just, and equitable revenue sharing formula that reflects the current
As of right by now, we
capacities of the three tiers of government in line with constitutional.
how did they affect my
He
life?
said that the
Since
aim
when?
was also to align with the country's current socio-economic realities. According to him,
So we
the
know
allocation
what
formula was
you
last carried out in 1992, saying that there were several executive adjustments since 2002 and a full-scale overhaul had not been undertaken until now. Also, the RMAFC has hinted at plans to review the salaries of political office holders in Nigeria, describing current earnings as inadequate,
Ṣé mo lè dáná actually àbùtù?
outdated in the face of rising
Ní
responsibilities.
ìbùkún tí ó yà kàwọ́ àyè tí ló ní báyìí. Ọgbọ́n náà bàtà náà yà abẹ́ pàpọ̀
Also,
mẹ́ni
in
tí
a
wọ́n dá.
wave of devastating
Look at how they embark with the bulletin
terrorism
hand
in the country and the sub-region.
Every
Ògbóró mọ̀ náà yìí, òun ní tó mọ̀ náà ní ìgbàkọ̀rọ̀ náà ní yìí. Ayọ̀ tó ní mọ̀ náà, after that for all the president for all to go to the
Known by the alias Abdul Rahman,
They will go on higher up, they are no good for
reported by a Nigerian intelligence source operating in the Lake Chad region. The source said Yusuf, believed to be around 18 years old, was detained alongside 5 other alleged militants during a counter-terror sweep. The latest development is the leak of Stella anti-terrorist heavy force against extremist networks operating across the Lake Chad Basin with ripple effects drawing in international partners. This was as the Nigerian government announced the capture of two Mahmoud Mohammed Usman, also known as Abu Bara, and Mahmoud Al-Nigeri, known as Malam Mahmouda.
I don't know, they can
The request by the developer ignited
But then you start all these things, so don't push your people out first. I'm going to say for that.
Fight against terrorism and extremism. At the same time, the U.S. mission in Nigeria unveiled stricter visa requirements, compelling Nigerian applicants to disclose all social
Immediately you
media
enter,
handles
even if
used
you
in
don't
the
get
last
money.
5 years, citing
Once you start making it, push your family out.
All right, we find a cocktail of
Very
things
big
this
kidnapping,
morning. We
whatever.
have security, we have revenue mobilization, talking about the commission, talking about perhaps a review of revenue sharing and also salaries. That's more beginner.
That's what people are
I mean, you said a cocktail story, so let me throw my Molotov in a cocktail so it becomes a Molotov. It's a reminder that colonialism continues to remain, and the imbalance in the way of the world between the Western world and countries like Japan and the African continent. Since it started in 1993, despite the aid that it will normally be,
This girl and I talk about how overstanding they talk about.
the reflection of
When
Tika started and they said they were going to give some subvention to Africa worth close to $30 billion, and that was criticized for a slow, release. Also, I remember many other initiatives, aluminum smelters all over the continent that Tika has done, and a couple of other projects actually intended to develop Africa. But everything
So,
was
we never.
cycling to keep them where they ought to be, aid and help, so that they don't industrialize. And that's just what is happening again. So I'm very sad when I see our president go for trips like this. Be it Japan, be it Russian summit with Africa, be it Britain with Africa, be it America with Africa. It's all the same playbook. The likes of Dambisa movement or Korea and other economists have written that the way to really take people out of the bottom failure, which a lot of them live in the African continent, is trade. And what is trade? Value-added trade. Manufacturing, turning this material around. Not partnerships like this, where the West is only do things to pay for themselves. Like America opened the window for tariff-free. And sold in the economy, yes, you get some money in return, but in turn, makes the economy.
Every year, that's the biggest mistake going through the
So when you look at it, this is just a yes, they're going to talk about partnerships, digital partnerships, AI. They're going to tell stories like
they are not.
for the African continent. They're going to placate the African continent with all sorts. In fact, they're going to release money, maybe $350, $400 million, $500 million. That money, when you check it, is not even up to 1% of what one of their companies in Japan, like
Before you get to do, then make your own Kong.
rich
All those people, once you, even my mama said,
study their small
you give her money,
couple of those
You also
when
pray
they
for
started,
that,
they have a
but
name. They're called
give up,
diabats.
even though she can read that, right?
Constantly
You
overdoing
can
it.
still recognize, she still know
Diabats.
how much.
You need to get to this point.
She will
Korea also have a
give
culture
me say
of-
counter,
which
at least
General Park-
I'll give her back, but counter make me know how much this person
Started
give me,
investing
something like that.
cables. Those are the Samsungs of this world.
I'll count it with my presence, I say, hey, you don't even touch her presence. Knowing fully well that we are not going to steal your product. So this one, you see, they do like say, you go college steal and if you mistakenly see it.
Don't make promises. We hear all the promises in the days to come. It will be kumbaya, but Africa never gets everything. It's never going to make Africa free. Second point, I'm not surprised that RAMFAC is saying they want to ramp up salaries of government officials. But you see, what RAMFAC never talks about is the allowance these government officials get. We were watching all on TV when a government official, a serving minister in this administration, said there's nothing with him driving in a Rolls Royce. He owns a Rolls Royce. He said his father was the general manager of several companies. I said he had a lot of money. So RAMFAC, with the argument they make, saying that, oh,
Tinubu salary is 1.5
I'm
million.
going to get distracted. Do you think a government minister
Oh, yeah, Helen.
Increase Tinubu salary.
will claim
Yeah.
that it's because of the extra salary?
Just can you imagine that?
You say to how
What about
much?
the extra
That
perks?
salary Tinubu was
Major pension
I
allowance.
don't know how we go.
What RAMFAC is just trying to do, in my own estimation, yes, I understand the argument.
That's why increase the vote for ministers, I mean for
It's to
ministers
give
and for presidents.
Good.
True government
1.5.
1.5.
function, government largesse,
And I go man.
is just make them richer. Is it President Tinubu?
They just want to know what you have to talk.
5.5 million that will mean anything to him.
You know, when man, why you go
White
there,
Foundation
oh, question.
Foundation said it's by the donation of other people. These billions for nothing. Like she's sharing.
I just want my shop to put it there and as well. Oh, yeah, it's not too much.
There's been a lot of
Ordinary principle
billions in
of
it.
unity
So
discrimination.
is it the same government officials that are living
I
for
don't know, but security was there going to do
law? Why don't they even take a pay cut? Because the country has given them so much good already. Dear RAMFAC, I think those that we should really advocate for are those at the lower rungs. Those I believe that their salary should be reviewed because inflation is dealing them a hard blow are the police officers that because their take-home pay is so hard, they are now advocating for them to go back to a defined benefit scheme. These are the people that risk their life every day, and they even guard these government officials for about to increase their salary. So you can make the argument that since 2008, 2009, salaries have not been increased, things have changed. Yes, we get that argument. You can put it on the table, but really, things are not as they seem.
Okay, let's start with terrorism. The arrest of a young man said to be the son of Mohammed Yusuf, who was the leader of Boko Haram. At the time Mohammed Yusuf was killed in 2009, this young man who were told was still an infant. It is curious that he has followed in his father's footsteps and is said to belong to the ISWAP. He and 5 others were arrested in N'Djamena by the Chadian authorities. Following collaboration between the Nigerian authorities and the Chadian authorities to rid the Lake Chad basin area of terrorists and insurgents. To that extent, I think this is a good advertisement for cross-border international cooperation in addressing the problem of Boko Haram or ISWAP or Al-Qaeda and the spread across the Sahelian region. Now, yesterday we commended the Nigerian security structure, the Office of the NSA, and the Department of State Services, having succeeded in arresting the kingpins of the Ansaru, a terrible terrorist group in Nigeria. And it is not surprising that even the United States, the mission in Nigeria, has commended the Nigerian government for moving in this direction. However, in addition to the caveats that I stated yesterday, the additional caveat is that while this is praiseworthy, the Nigerian government can only continue to do more. Because what we have seen in the past is that in this asymmetrical war with bandits, insurgents, and terrorists, they seem to have a capacity to regroup and launch another attack. And that is why eternal vigilance is a solution in curbing the spread of insurgency and terrorism. Deepening cross-border relations, either with regard to the proliferation of small and light weapons, or with the apprehension and prosecution of terrorists and bandits, is also an option that cannot be dropped. Now, on the question of the U.S. Embassy, saying that whoever is going to apply for visa, as you are filling your from DSL,
yes,
you must supply in that form your social media record for the past 5 years.
Listen for her.
Well, the consular section of the United States Mission has every right to determine who is given visa. It's the prerogative of the country issuing visa to determine whether persons are fit, and they give conditions. The explanation is that you have the right
the problem
to fend off
somebody voicing out.
However, the wake up
Because Emma can't get her in now, eh?
is that
Because that day has been child burial and when
social media has become
as cap of Kingsley now, where
considered.
so as Kingsley doesn't anything, I don't know anything. So before then, I cap was him after he dropped, I dropped.
On social
So was it not all along for over 3 months?
I hope that will be a wake up call.
You know, no good, so why he didn't even say anything. So if you're not hearing now, voicing out.
Instrument of
In the Chiono, and then you expect that people will know.
now, as to Tika,
Somebody waking up from what is in
1993, the conferences are held 3 years on a rotational basis between Japan and Nigeria. Now, I think it's a good idea. It's follows the pattern of the US Africa Summit, the France Africa Summit, the China Africa Summit, the Arab Africa Summit. We cannot, in a globalized world, where the frontiers keep expanding.
I started it because of the commission I got from
any kind of effort or forum that promotes bilateral relations.
The thing is that you have to encourage anybody come have issue, you raise you open up. Not only and then it will not look as though now you are unfair. That is the perception now. To look as though we are unfair. I think we are but on our own part.
Now, what this means, therefore, is that it is conceived as a partnership that will
yes, you voice out. Oh, I may see you now. You can see now.
and the other partners that are there, including the African Union, the World Bank, the UNDP, and some other organizations. So it's not just a one-on-one between Japan and individual countries. However, President Tinubu attending that conference, I think it's okay. It's good. Because one of the pillars of this administration's foreign policy drive is what they call economic diplomacy. President Tinubu has been going on many of these conferences, summits, fora, to attract investment, to sell Nigeria as the last frontier within the West African zone and as a good destination for investment. Dr. Ayoteriba was on this table yesterday saying that, look, there are many projects that the Tinubu administration can do, not through borrowing, but by attracting investments, that will pay for those projects and that will pay for itself. So if this is within that construct, we're told that President Tinubu is going to engage with Japanese companies already doing businesses here and also attract other ones. And I think that again, in terms of an objective, is in order. Now, what companies are here already? We have Honda, we have Isuzu, we have Kanenta, we have Ajinomoto, which is in the food and beverages section. These are Japanese companies that are doing business here. Maybe more will come. What we can say to African leaders is that they also need to develop their own capacity in terms of negotiations. That's where Africa falls short. Whether it's the Road Belt Initiative or it is all these conferences, many of our African leaders, they see these conferences as if it's an opportunity to just travel, as if it's a jamboree. They lack the capacity, technical and intellectual, to negotiate. The other thing is that when there are outcomes, many of these African countries lack the capacity to follow up. This is where the Nigerian government consistently drops the ball. And I had calls once on this table to call out the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in terms of capacity, in terms of how they focus on outcomes of the various conferences that they attend. As for the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation Commission, well, Dr. Mohamed Shehu is right in saying that the review is long overdue. The review one at the level of the revenue sharing formula, which he says will be completed before the end of this year to reflect fairness, justice, and equity, and to reflect, current realities, and to ensure the objective of fiscal federalism. How does he mean? The federal government, in the vertical structure of revenue allocation, the federal government gets 52.68. The states get about 26% of revenue. The local governments get 20%. Whereas the bulk of government responsibility is concentrated at the state level. So I would like to see a situation where the states get more revenue if possible than the federal government. In other words, it's a constitutional thing, however, that fiscal federalism should be respected. If it was in 1992 that we reviewed the formula last, then of course it means to strong overdue, as Dr. Shehu was saying. The caveats, all these things have their caveats, is that the state governors themselves have not behaved well. If you give them more money now, and you say because they have more responsibilities, many of these state governors are proved to be unproductive. They've turned their states into beggarly states where they concentrate more on their own conspicuous consumption, and they do not act as accountable and transparent managers of state resources. That is the caveat there. And as for review of salaries of public officers, that again is long overdue. By 2014, a minister of the Federal Republic was earning 990,000. If you calculate the exchange rate around that time, it would be around maybe $5,000 or thereabouts. They are still earning that basic salary of 990,000 naira up to today. It is less than $700. If you pay your public officers peanuts, then of course they will look for ways. The loud lifestyle that some of them have has no other name other than corruption. It's not about perks. If you see the pay slip of a minister or you see the pay slip of a minister of state, how many perks are there? Those who live large, they get their resources through corruption, by putting pressure on the agencies under them, by insisting that the PAMSEC should help them manipulate the books. If we say we want to eliminate corruption, let us start from the basic point that, okay, we pay them basic remuneration so that we will have strong justification to punish whoever is found. It is for us to strengthen processes and institutions. After all, these public officers, they go to the same market with other Nigerians. So, if you are a public officer, there are expectations among the people. The people are themselves the problem. So the subtext of it is corruption. Then let us at least pay them well first. I respect it.
All right. Okay, let me start from there then. In terms of mourning the idea, I think it's important to mention that because in 2023, when this issue came up with regards to RMAFC considering the increase in the salaries of public office holders, they had come out to debunk that story, saying that it was untrue. At the time, they were thinking of the news out there was a 114% increase in the salaries of public office holders, and that was just very new to the Tinubu administration. So of course it was bad optics, and they're very quick to come out to debunk the story. And now we're coming back to say that they're revisiting that matter, or perhaps they're now bringing it up to say that, you know what, it is long overdue, and absolutely correct. The last time they've done this, realities have changed, exchange rate has changed. It doesn't reflect the current economic, it's not a reflection of the current economic situation in Nigeria. However, I do still think that it is not a good time to begin to talk about increasing the salaries, because we all know that the salary, the basic salary, isn't the issue. And that's why we've often talked about transparency in terms of how much in allowance public office holders actually collect. Because if you don't actually know how much this amounts to, it is difficult for us to hold to account public office holders who are living way and far above the means of how much they're supposed to collect. And so it's difficult to judge who is corrupt and who is not corrupt. If you're driving a Lamborghini or a Rolls Royce, for instance, as a public office holder, and your salary is at, say, 1 million naira, 1.5 million naira for the president, but you say that the other amount of money is made up for allowances, how are we supposed to judge that or to hold that to account as Nigerians? And so the salary is not the issue, and I do agree that in order to make it less attractive for corruption, or for you to make, find other means to make money, let's increase their salary. But let us talk about the allowances. That is the big issue. The allowances are up to sometimes 10 times what the basic salary is. As a basic salary is nothing. It's money for the ball. It's money for spending just for fuel or something like that. Now, when we talk about fairness and equity, let's look at the common man. The current salary, the current minimum wage is at 70,000 naira. Convert that to the dollar rate, it goes about $45 per month, is what a grown human being in Nigeria, with sometimes a family, takes home each month. That is basic. I mean, it's not a reflection of it. There's no justification if you're not able to remunerate properly Nigerians who go out every day without an additional allowance, mind, who go out every day and work, and then you're talking about increasing the salaries of public office holders. When we talk about foreign national assembly, there are other ways to ensure that we are still able to keep the resources tight. There have been conversations around making these roles part-time, and even looking at how much work is being done to justify the amount of money that they collect at the end of each month. We talk about recesses at any given point. How many times do they actually sit? How many of them go back to their constituencies to actually engage with the people who've elected them in? These are public office holders. The president himself, in terms of how much work is done to justify the amount of money for that position. These are the things that we should be talking about. When you earn a salary, there are KPIs to ensure that the amount of money that comes into your account at the end of the month is justified by the amount of work that you do. It is not a reward for being able to run a great election to get money at the end of the month. How much work is being done? So these are the broader conversations that Nigerians want to hear, beyond the fact that, just because it is time for us to increase salaries, we need to do it. I agree with that, but then also let us look at the metrics by which we measure this and see if the public office holders whom are being considered for a salary increase actually do the work. Let's review job specifications. Let's review working hours. Let's review how much money Nigeria can actually afford at this time. And let's review if it's fair in relation with what the common man or the man on the street earns. As it's been said, we are widening further the gap between the rich and the poor, and there's almost no middle class anymore. So when we make a justification and argument for that, let's also look at what is available, the amount of work that's being done, and fairness in relation to what the NLC and Nigerian workers are asking for at this time. Then beyond that, let's look at Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD 9. Initially, when you hear that it's happening in Tokyo, one might think, why is it happening again outside of Africa when it's a summit or a conference for Africa? But has already been established. It happens every 3 years and it's rotational. So last time it was held in Tunisia here on the African continent, and this time it's going to be held in Tokyo, in Japan. Whilst we can make arguments for whether or not we should attend these meetings, the truth is that the president is already there. So let us now begin to see what we can do to maximize his appearing at such conferences. So what should African leaders do there with? As has been said, usually we leave these kinds of conferences and summits with a shorter end of the stick in terms of bargains. We go there and it's almost a yes sir, make a big show, release, have press releases, put out headlines on what should be, or a memorandum of understanding, and there's nothing. We go back again in 3 years' time, the same old story, the same old talk, and nothing really to show for it. So some of the things that I'll put forward to the president this morning, in terms of some of the things, action points for not just Nigeria, but also African countries in this regard. The first is, when it comes to Japan, we can ask for investment higher on the value chain. Number one is that we're looking to attract investment. But beyond investment as to asking, interactions with companies in Japan, is what are they coming to offer us as Nigerians? Usually they establish companies here, but we don't have manufacturing plants here in Nigeria. Dr. Bati mentioned Honda and some car companies that have Japanese origin. But if you look at a lot of them, what they have, and that's food for the food. But many of these companies don't actually establish manufacturing plants here in Africa, in Nigeria. Because what that would mean for us as a country is that it would increase job opportunities for Nigerians. It puts money into the economy and not just taken from us all the time. So we can sign memorandum and say, oh yes, we have Japanese companies in Nigeria, but what is the need for us as a country? To what extent is the benefit for us? And then it would be great to also see even Nigerian companies being able to trade with Japan and see where we have economic value in terms of what do we have as a nation to trade with Japan? How can we compete on the same table? We cannot just keep asking for company. Nigerian businesses also have products that they can also take and export abroad. Beyond that is also infrastructure development. There are some similarities that some cities in Nigeria have with some cities in Japan. Densely populated cities like Lagos, for instance. Japan has been able to urbanize and use technology to build houses to accommodate these densely populated cities. How can we trade ideas to ensure that this is replicated in Nigeria and we're able to share resources in that regard? These are some of the things that should be pursued. And finally, one of the things, we should not go there to get more debt. What should we push is public-private partnerships. Let's see how we can invest without looking for ways to get more debt, to further impoverish or further put us into more debt as a nation. So there are a few things that can come on the table, and what we will be looking for at the end of the summit on Friday is what has Nigeria or other African countries gained from this 3-day outing or 3-day conference in other parts of the world. Well, I'll leave it here for now, and hopefully we get to have conversations around the other topics in the course of today's show. It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have Adefemi Akinsanya join us for World Brief and to review top stories in today's newspaper. Stay with us.
More nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Your cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the good. Let's give it some action. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
Mealtime is game on. Meet my Shortbread Game Changer, made from natural ingredients to deliver game-changing chicken aroma and taste for my whole team.
Mom, why did we not use this before?
Upgrade your chicken game with game-changing chicken flavor from Maggie Chicken.
It means you know what is good.
Every day with a cup of Bonvita.
Yeah, what's that thing?
Minerals that support
depends on the news. The actually goes in that. I will be obedient that one. And I need to very nutritious. nwere ndị na-produce ihe eji esi odebe ya. So ọ bụrụ na ime awards what they are showing, ịma na that food.
Polo, the reward of success.
It's amazing how your child grows up before your eyes. Enable their thriving development with the new NanKid 4 with HMOs to support your child's development, probiotics and high quality proteins. And all of these work together to support your child's development and growth today and tomorrow. NanKid 4, nourish your child's potential.
In the beating heart of Owerri, business never sleeps. From sunrise to sundown, the wheels keep turning. And behind the scenes, vision meets action. Governor Hope Uzodima's leadership has turned manifestos into reality, transformations that feels like a miracle. But progress needs peace, and in Imo, it's not left to chance. From land to sky to river deep, guardians are watching, protecting dreams and opportunity. At Orashi's quiet shore, hydropower is rising, set to energize a growing economy. The change is visible. New roads emerge, industry hums, communities come alive. At the center, a digital revolution. 500,000 young minds trained each year to build the future. As Orashi rises, so does Imo and the hopes of a hard-working people. The new Imo is on the rise.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akisanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning, Ayo. I know we are with us. All on the same page. All right, well, let me tell you what's happening around the world. Now, after more than 1,000 days of war, US President Donald Trump has called Vladimir Putin to arrange a meeting between the Russian and Ukrainian presidents, a move Volodymyr Zelensky says he is ready for. Now, that was one of the biggest developments from the highly anticipated meeting at the White House between the US president, the Ukrainian president, and a host of European leaders. As expected, Trump and Zelensky did meet first. And in addition to the proposed meeting with Putin, the pair also discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, especially since focus has shifted away from a ceasefire and instead on an all-out peace deal. Take a listen.
If you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires.
Well, the specific details aren't clear yet, but immediately we can see that this meeting between Trump and Zelensky was far friendlier than the fiery meeting they had back in February. Now, the pair even joked with a reporter over Zelensky's attire, slightly smarter than his previous choice. Now, Zelensky brought a letter from his wife, Olena Zelenska, to the US First Lady Melania Trump. The meeting was also different due to the visible support for Ukraine from the so-called coalition of the willing, which included leaders from the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Finland, Italy, the European Commission, and NATO. Now, ahead of their private summit, all of them sat around the table with Trump, which gave off the illusion of mutual respect, everybody sitting together, which was noticeably different seating, a different seating dynamic from when the leaders of 5 African countries met with Trump, which was then sat directly in front of Trump, and the dynamics were slightly off. Though, to be fair, while in the Oval Office, the European leaders were also sat in front of Trump again. It's open to interpretation and argument. Now, speaking of seating arrangements, there was a hot mic moment actually between French President Emmanuel Macron and Trump. Now, Trump is whispering, so you have to really turn your listening ears on. And there's a lot of noise in the background. Let's see if you can make out what Trump told Macron. Let's take a listen.
Sit down, everybody.
I think he wants to make it feel as crazy as what Trump told Emmanuel Macron about Vladimir Putin. So perhaps there is peace on the horizon. Now,
all the items.
Well, looking ahead to the future negotiations have already started regarding these security guarantees for Ukraine. Now, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says teams are arriving today, Tuesday, to start this work that will reassure people in Ukraine, Europe, and the United Kingdom about what the future will look like between Russia and Ukraine. Now, from one conflict to the other, let's head home to the actual point. The M23 rebels, the main rebel group in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, has suspended the government until it says the government sticks to an already existing ceasefire deal. Now, a reminder that the fighting between the M23 rebels and Congo and the Congolese military has been escalated since January, when rebels captured the eastern regional and mineral-rich capital of Goma and surrounding parts. Now, Qatar has been a mediating force. Both sides did sign a ceasefire deal in Doha a few months ago and also last month.
So I would get 2 days. Yeah, you I don't need to tell anybody.
Can they put boots on the ground when it comes to that point in Ukraine? You think Putin will allow? Is it not the same Russia that signed a memorandum in 1994, the Budapest memorandum, to prevent any attacks on Ukraine? So why are we deceiving ourselves? Why are we acting? You see, the world has a record selective ability here. Why is Trump acting like the what's this guy, Ben Wallace, the chief of Minister of Defense in the UK? Then he didn't make overtures to Shogun and some other Russian officials before the war started. Remember, he used to go to the church in England, the Catholic Church in Milton Keynes. How we used to pray against the war before the war started. People begged Putin. And they are all talking as if Putin is just going to make peace without collecting land. That's what the sticking point is going to come. Now, Trump is now coming out openly in his last tweets. Really? Ukrainian land? Just because of the port of Sebastopol there, and you think he will agree? When Putin makes his demand, you see, a lot of people think we are kidding away. Is it the same Putin that Zelensky is a legitimate leader?
Alright, okay. So before the trilateral meeting, which Trump is supposed to spearhead, he said he'd put a call across Putin. A location hasn't been decided. The date hasn't yet been picked. But the conclusion is that following the meeting yesterday, and they said a lot of things would come out for us to even begin to see the direction for not just the United States, Ukraine, but also European leaders. But what came out of that, not very concrete, but at least was that a phone call to Putin was made by Trump. A date and location would be agreed. Following that meeting between the two countries, that's Russia and Ukraine, so Putin and Zelensky, Trump would then come in to make a plan in terms of the two countries. What has come out now is that Trump is saying he doesn't even want to have a talk around ceasefire, but let us go straight to peace deal. Now you can understand that because you look at the recent times, the wars that we've had, the failure of ceasefires, especially when one party does not adhere to the terms of the ceasefire, you would understand why there will be questions around the ceasefire deals really work, especially if parties do not adhere and what are the consequences if they don't. It's the same thing that's happening between M23 and Congo right now. Right. The reason why they're saying they're not going to sign a peace deal, M23, is that they haven't adhered to the ceasefire deal in the first place, and so they will not go ahead to sign a peace deal. This same thing might happen in Russia and Ukraine. The same thing happened with Israel and Palestine, where ceasefire, even by the third, I think they had a third step ceasefire deal, and by the first, hoping to reach a peace deal, by the first one, it had fallen apart. Nothing has happened. So when we look at these and analyze and look at how ceasefire deals have failed, perhaps you can understand Trump's push for a peace deal rather than a ceasefire. But when you do sign, when we get to the peace deal, will they also adhere to the terms of the peace deal? Who holds them to account? Would America be willing to impose heavy sanctions to force the hands of Putin and Russia to ensure that they adhere strictly to the terms of the peace deal? These are some of the things that we've spoken about. Now today, the meeting today, ahead of today, what they will be hoping to speak about, because we've heard about security guarantees, the details are not yet quite clear. But what we do know is that it might come in the area of maybe boots on ground, actually having soldiers. They said they would have 70 billion with Europe for American weapons. They also talked about drones production in Ukraine. So a few details, sketchy details, but today hopefully they'll be able to sit together and discuss to what extent security guarantees would look like. Oh, Trump has agreed to that. So that's some positives, I would say, for Ukraine. But everything hedges on the outcome of that meeting between Putin and Zelensky. So far, they've not been able to agree. I'm very skeptical as to how successful that meeting would be. But then we will determine, the outcome of the war or where the direction of this war at the end of the day. But one last thing is also that Zelensky, when on the lighter side, he dressed more formally. Yes. Remember, he was criticized at the last meeting in February. That was that made headlines saying that he didn't even this guy was the vice president wasn't there.
Yeah, he was just quiet.
He just sit and watch.
It's not fair for the journalists to bring that up and say you're just better. I think that was
no. I think it was on a lighter note. It was on a lighter note because of what happened. And what was yes. But it says a lot about diplomacy, that even down to your outfit, it speaks a lot when you're going to have conversations. So whether or not they spoke about that, he dressed more respectfully, he was treated better.
Same attire to Europe, and they never complained about it.
Well, Europe and Trump are different. Trump is more interested in your outfit.
Now, it's good that the parties involved are talking. Dialogue, negotiation, this form the focus of diplomatic relations among nations. And to have parties interested in peace between Ukraine and Russia coming together, that in itself is a plus in terms of the continuing search for peace between both countries. The second thing is that, Zelensky got a better reception this time. He was dressier, and the same reporter that spoke condescendingly to him the other time told him, "You look fabulous." He was handed out of the White House in February. That did not happen this time around. It was warmly received. And J.D. Vance, who was heckling him in February, kept quiet this time around and allowed the conversations to flow. What are the main outcomes? One, we have the European leaders present at that meeting, presenting a common front, namely their support for Ukraine. President Trump also said, well, he will go along with the European countries and support them in providing a backstop for whatever peace agreement is established in the course of this negotiation. And the European leaders there were, excited about that, and they praised Trump for, his leadership in terms of diplomacy. Another issue that was discussed was, okay, what would this security guarantee look like? And it was resolved that will be the details in that respect will be worked out in other meetings. 3, it came up that yes, Putin is the main issue here, because Putin He's holding the whole of Crimea, and he still holds substantial part of about 4 divisions, 4 areas in Ukraine. Zelensky has already said that he has no powers to cede any territory. It's on the basis of this that Macron said, look, to even make progress, there are so many issues still to be resolved. To make progress, we will need to have a trilateral meeting, also in the presence of European leaders. So after that meeting, after all of this, President Trump phoned Putin. So what should we be looking forward to? Is this Putin-Zelensky summit, where you have the other interested parties, the allies, so to speak, the US and the allies in Europe, to work out the details. However, the unfortunate point is, as I have said previously, that Putin doesn't want to shift, Zelensky doesn't want to shift. And that is why I agree with those, Marco Rubio in particular, who says that peace is still a long way off. As for Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23, now last month, in June, there was this meeting in the White House, President Trump bringing the parties together and securing commitment that there will be peace. It was on that occasion that he saw that beautiful reporter, and he said, oh, you look very beautiful, inside and out, you know, which was on the side. But the main substance was that, you know, he said he was glad that progress would be made. Last month, the M23 and the Democratic government of the DRC met in Qatar. And it was in Qatar that our agreement, the details of the ceasefire, you know, were worked out. Now, that ceasefire agreement was to be signed again on Monday in Qatar. But the M23 spokesperson said they will not be there because they believe that the DRC government is not interested in peace. And what is the bone of contention here? The M23 is claiming that the government in DRC is attacking their locations. And the military, the DRC military denies this and says, no, they are the aggressors. Yes. So you see that this conflict is still a long way from being resolved. Yes. But this is not the first time. Every other peace attempt in the past has failed in that region. And what is the issue? Territory, mineral resources, and then the role of Rwanda, which Rwanda says is denied.
Exactly.
These are the big issues.
They are. Thank you all for your wonderful submissions. I really want to hear your thoughts on a few of these stories on the newspaper review today. So let's take a look firstly at the front page of this day. This day leads with President Tinubu joining world leaders in Tokyo in his bid to woo investors and shape Africa's future. Now, upon his arrival, the president was received by Ambassador Hideo Matsubara, who is the ambassador in charge of Haneda Airport for TICAD, and Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Ugar, as well as officials from the Nigerian embassy. Now, this day also wades into the battle against insecurity as it reports 6 suspected Boko Haram members, including a young man believed to be Muslim Mohammed Yusuf, the son of Boko Haram's late founder Mohammed Yusuf, has been arrested. The New Telegraph leads with Amnesty International and Transparency International expressing concern over the gifting of official vehicles and the building of houses for judicial officers by the executive, saying the development is capable of compromising judicial independence in Nigeria. That's why those bodies in Nigeria have called on the judiciary to reject such offers in order to avoid becoming compromised. Meanwhile, the Punch leads with the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, which has hinted at plans to review the salaries of political office holders in Nigeria, describing the current earnings as inadequate, unrealistic, and outdated in the face of rising responsibilities and economic challenges. So the RMAFC chairman, Mohammed Shehu, disclosed that President Tinubu presently earns 1.5 million naira every month, while ministers receive less than 1 million naira. These figures have remained unchanged since 2008. Now, the Daily Sun leads with paternity scams rising nationwide. 1 in 4 children are likely to fail a paternity test, according to the 2025 annual data testing report released by Smart Data Nigeria, which analyzed data collected from July 2024 to June 2025, and it found that the national paternity exclusion rate currently stands at 25%. It's worth noting, though, that this is slightly down From the 27% which was recorded in 2024, the data confirms, though still, a troubling and persistent trend in which many presumed fathers turn out not to be biologically related to their children. Now, often these paternity tests are taken during visa application processes, which brings me to the Daily Independent. Now, its headline is talking about visa applications just in a slightly different context. Now, Nigerians are going to have to provide 5 years' worth of their social media activity, specifically their usernames and handles when applying for US visas in the future. And finally, the Daily Trust has a Sokoto boat mishap where at least 3 members of a family are among the 23 people who are missing.
Very sad one, actually.
Yeah, very, very sad.
And Nigeria is reacting, and reciprocal measures will be meted out on America also, as regards to the social media.
Thank you very much.
Always.
Although I would have loved to comment on this
DNA.
DNA matter. 25% of
Yes, which is lower than last year. Last year it was
Last year was
27.
27 full people. Yes, I think.
Difference of 2%. Who should we be? You women. Anyway, we take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Felix Moka, National Publicity Secretary of the APC, alongside Ladan Salihu, a member of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025, the gateway to abundant opportunity, the platform for more access to a continent with more makers and creators, more technology and manufacturing capabilities, more innovators and collaborators, more information and knowledge, a continent of opportunities for business in more markets and resources that accelerate progress and create space for more infrastructure, connectivity and networking, more creativity, production, and more deals for the people. Afrexim Bank, in collaboration with the African Union Commission and the AFCFTA Secretariat, brings you the 4th Intra-African Trade Fair, hosted by the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. Over 2,000 exhibitors, 35,000 plus attendees, 140 plus countries, $44 billion in trade and investment opportunities. Register now and enter the gateway to new opportunities.
It's amazing how your child grows up before your eyes. Enable their thriving development with the new NanKid 4 with HMOs to support your child's development, probiotics and high-quality proteins. And all of these work together to support your child's development and growth today and tomorrow. NanKid 4, nourish your child's potential.
In the heart of Africa's largest economy, a silent transformation is unfolding. At the center of it all is Conga Group, an ecosystem of innovation, commerce, and capability.
Our goal was simple yet ambitious: to build robust infrastructure that simply connects our customers and our merchants, offering our customers greater variety while creating wealth and new opportunities for our merchants.
Our aim didn't just take, it's about national execution every day.
Conga Health, where science meets beauty.
We are the engine behind Conga's nationwide delivery power.
We are redefining commerce in Nigeria, connecting millions of buyers and sellers through a secure, trusted, and scalable marketplace.
Conga Corporates serves the needs of corporates, delivered at the right price, at the right time, with peace of mind. Conga Pay, a fintech built on integrity for seamless transactions for merchants and everyone. Conga Radio and TV, connecting brands to their target audience and markets.
With Conga, what can't you do? Conga Group, the e-commerce group you trust. Mealtime is game on. Meet my SureBet Game Changer, made from natural ingredients to deliver game-changing chicken aroma that's taste for my whole team.
Mom, why did we not use this before?
Upgrade your chicken game with game-changing chicken flavor from Maggi Chicken.
Imagine a learning environment where every experience gives you the confidence to lead, inspire, and make a difference. When I came to Now, I had one goal: to step out of my comfort zone and test my limits. I wanted more than lectures. I wanted a place where my ideas could grow. Every day, I'm growing into the person I always dreamt of becoming. Confident, capable, and ready for the world. This is where I belong. We're in an environment that supports us to test ideas, build projects, and make meaningful impact. We are gaining skills that extend beyond the classroom, preparing us for opportunities in the global scale.
We found our place here. You can too.
Polo, the reward of success.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has commended all the political parties and candidates who participated in Saturday's by-elections and enjoined them to continue to be guided by the spirit of sportsmanship, fair contest, and magnanimity, which are enablers of enduring democracy. However, opposition parties have rejected the results and conduct of the by-elections. The PDP accused INEC of deliberate sabotage and described the election process as a severe blow to Nigeria's democratic integrity. On their part, the African Democratic Congress, ADC, says Saturday's by-elections show that democracy has declined under President Bola Tinubu's administration. The ADC attributed its poor performance in Saturday's by-elections to widespread violence, vote buying, and irregularities allegedly perpetrated under the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the All Progressives Congress. Joining us on this show to discuss the conduct of Saturday's by-election is Felix Mota, National Publicity Secretary of the APC, and Ladan Salihu, a member of the African Democratic Congress. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on the morning show. Good morning. Well, I mean, Dr. Ogan and thank you. Well, the subject speaks for itself. The APC having won 12 out of the 16 constituencies in 12 states of the Federation in Saturday's by-elections is claiming that it was siege-free, it was violence-free, and that it was a successful program. But all the other political parties, AGC included, are saying that it was a sham of an election, that the APC sabotaged other political parties. In fact, in Adamawa, the Adamawa PDP is heading to court. The chairman of the PDP in Adamawa is on record as having said, if the result in Ganye is not reversed, there will be no democracy in 2027. In Kano, Ogun, Kogi, and other states, a total 333 thugs were apprehended. Nobody knows what will happen to them. So we have 2 days, and we have 2 persons from 2 different political parties. Let me start with you, Mr. Felix Mota, who is with us in the studio here. So do you share the view that it is siege-free, and you think that, those who are complaining are just crying wolf? And then after you, Mr. Salihu, you have to reply.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Now, no election is universally hitch-free. Almost nowhere in the world do you have an election that you can say was 100% heat-free. But it's, all relative. The election we had last Saturday was generally, free and fair. With exceptions in some cases where I think there was clear evidence of either violence or some disruptions of sorts, like you had, in some constituency. I think it was the Magosino district in Kano, where we had some issue of violence, where I even had to issue a statement asking that INEC should, in fact, cancel that election. But having said that, overall, the election was, pretty good. And the outcomes are again very, clear and telling. The APC prevailed significantly, across, all of the districts where the elections took place. Now, look, with every election, people win and people lose. And I think it's become fashionable in our country for those who sit on their hands, who don't do enough to vie and compete for votes when elections come, to wait until the results are announced and then to go to town, speaking a lot of profanities, and that's what we're hearing, with some of which you referenced, a moment ago. Now, the ADC, I'm happy that we have someone on the line, should be explaining to Nigerians, how they came up with such, a very, very, austere, outing at an election, coming on the heels of all of the propaganda and all of the stories told about, their, eminence in our democratic space. They should be making an explanation, not pointing fingers at the APC. We simply, mobilized, canvassed for votes. We went out there and our candidates prevailed. And I think that we had every right to celebrate our victory this just concluded election.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Saliu. Dr. Saliu, are you with us? Dr. Saliu is now okay. Yeah. Now, I'm sure you had Mr. Moka here in the Lagos studio. Well, he says that what happened last Saturday, August 16th, was free and fair, and that the APC were fair and square, and that the opposition is just mouthing profanities. So, he already said maybe you'll be talking profanities and all of that. What's your view?
Well, my good friend and brother, Dr. Moka, has spoken what is expected from a minder of the establishment and, a spokesperson of his party. But I'm sorry, he's gotten it completely wrong. Nigerians have watched with disgust and with appalling, dispositions what played out in the by-elections. We have, these elections conducted in 12 states, over 32 local governments, 6,987, I guess, polling units. Now, these elections, Dr. Abati, they do not in any way represent a barometer for gauging what is to come in 2027. I'm not going to take the bait from Mr. Moka to suggest that these elections, are a yardstick that will tell Nigerians what to expect in 2027. That is not the issue. The issue at stake now, the empirical issues to discuss, are the issues of transparency, integrity of the election process. You have 300 thugs arrested by securities. In one local government alone in Cal 100 have been arrested. There's an individual that was caught with 25.9 million naira trying to buy votes in Zamfara State. For the first time in our election history, soldiers were deployed in a ward in Sakajiki where there was, daylight box snatching thank God the INEC has, declared that election inconclusive. But when you look at the conduct of the elections, when you try to look at the figures, 6,900 polling units as against 176,000 polling units nationwide that will play out in 2027. This is an insignificant comparison. With every empirical indices or index or whatever you want to put it, we know that the APC will go to town, will eulogize and celebrate and make Nigerians believe that this is a huge loss for the opposition parties. And let me say this, Dr. Abachi, the ADC was not literally on the ballot. There were people that had emotional attachment to their constituencies that on their own as individuals contested under the platform of the ADC, and they did so while this party, as we speak, is barely 3 months into calibration, repositioning, and catching our breath. So we expected this narrative to come out of the APC to suggest that 2027 is almost a foregone conclusion. No, it's not yet Uhuru. It's not. This is by no means a reason to compare. What is there to celebrate in this election? INEC has not lived up to the expectation of Nigerians. If anything, INEC has missed out on a history to redeem itself. The same processes that we've seen in 2023 played out. Nothing has changed.
All right.
So there's nothing to celebrate. And it is the responsibility of the state, especially the president, to midwife a process that will make this democracy dependable and, full of integrity.
Thank you, Mr. Salihu. Now, talking about making the process, for the president to midwife the process, especially Mr. Moka, as the president, who is an APC member, is known to be a Democrat. Under his administration, the Independent National Electoral Commission has come under a lot of criticism, including the last elections that took place over the weekend. I'd like your assessment of INEC's performance, especially in some areas that these electoral irregularities have been drilled down to a lack of performance by INEC under this administration. Some people have even said perhaps it's even deliberate and INEC is not as independent as it claims. What do you say about this? And Mr. Salihu, I'd like you to be a bit more specific. Ahead of, you talk about this being even a test for INEC. I'll come to you after Mr. Moka speaks. But I want him to respond first and then you can respond. With regards to what are some of the things that you want to see improve? Perhaps if there's any opportunity for INEC to redeem itself in 2027. But Mr. Moka, please go ahead first.
Thank you very much. I don't know of a time in the history of a democracy when the electoral body